I want to continue to tell the story of one of the greatest things that I got involved in with social media, podcasting, and that kind of a thing. So it's the Once Upon a Time fan podcast. And I told you the beginning, the influences along the way. And now I want to jump into as it really started to take off. And so here we go. So I mentioned it to you before. There was a lot of really good things that happened pre-start. Like I had a lot of really great influences that I would, listen to, and we enjoyed the show Lost, the ABC TV show Lost. And so we would watch different or we'd listen to different podcasts, we would read blogs, and so we really got a sense of what was really good and what we didn't want to do. And so we started the Once Upon a Time fan podcast. And that name was very important because I didn't want to get sued. And I knew that just the Once Upon a Time podcast was not good. And so we threw fan in there just to kind of like, hey, we're just fans, we're not anybody, whatever. And so that worked out well. And so we started, it started off slow, but it really started to pick up. And I just remember the emails. There was a lot of emails that people that wanted to share their thoughts, their feelings about it, what they liked, what they didn't like about it. But it was a lot. I remember there was a point we had a great listener. I can't remember her name. I'm sorry. I can't remember. But she would read the emails because I was so lousy at it. My wife says I mumble. I'm sorry if I do, but it was just, I had so much trouble reading emails. And so a great listener spent the time and would record reading the emails. And so we would play that. It was really a lot. And we had the deputies that were really loyal listeners that were helping us out. We had a lot of loyal listeners that Brad was another one. He helped out with the sending in the emails and all that. There were so many great people. I shouldn't have started to mention names but there were so many just fantastic people that we just started to really dive into it. And so, like I said, when we started the Once Upon a Time fan podcast, we were it. We were the only one. And so for the first time ever, I looked on the new and noteworthy with the iTunes podcast area, and we were number one. And we were new and noteworthy, and then we were also, number one or high. We were number one for a bit of time. And I was just blown away. Blown away. And so one day, I remember I had an idea, and it was a crazy idea. Like at this time, it was 2010-ish, 2011, we lived in Orange, California, 6 miles from Disneyland. That will come into play later. Whenever Colleen hears this, she knows it's trouble. And I said, I have an idea. So she dropped what she had and she looked at me. She goes, what? And I said, let's go to Steveston. Now, let me tell you this. I should have told you before. Steveston was the filming location for Once Upon a Time. Now, usually they film television shows on a lot, like the Warner Brothers lot or the Paramount lot or the Universal lot, whatever. Usually that's where they film television shows. But Once Upon a Time was different. I believe, now I'm talking kind of beyond what I know now, but I believe that with things like Canada, they give tax breaks for movie and TV studios to film there in Canada. And so they were filming in this town, Steveston, in Vancouver, British Columbia, on the left side, the country, the province over there. And so that's where they were filming. And the most incredible thing is, it wasn't on a lot. It was on a country. It was a street. It was out there with the town. And so I said, Colleen, we have to go. We have to go to Storybrooke. We have to go to Steveston in Vancouver. And she says, but we don't have the money for a passport. And I said, wait a minute. We can drive up. And she goes, okay. And she started looking it up on her phone. And she goes, we can get an enhanced license, cross the border, as long as we drive, and we don't have to pay for a plane ticket and all that. She goes, we could do it. And I was just floored. And during that time, I was working on this map of Steveston, Storybrooke. And so I was working on this map, and I was trying to kind of say, okay, this is Mr. Gold, who also played Rumpelstiltskin, spoiler alert. And so I'm kind of putting all the shops in the areas where not only there was a real store, but there was a store on the show. And so I was working on this, and so I started posting it to the website. And I remember there was this great listener, and Ken, man, just what a great, such great memories. And so he started emailing saying, I can help. I live pretty close. And I went, what? He goes, yeah, I live pretty close. And so he started helping me with, over here is this and that. Come to find out, he went to school with the owner of Mr. Gold's pawn shop, which was featured on the show, but it was also a storefront on Moncton Street in Steveston, also Storybrooke. And so listener Ken knew a bunch of different things because he was there. And I was just floored. And so we started kind of working on the map, and he was just so nice. All those things you heard about Canada is true. And so I emailed Ken and I said, listen, we're thinking about coming up to visit Steveston. And he goes, you're staying with me. And I kind of went, now listen, everything I said about Canada is true. I come from California, which, you don't know who these people are. And so I told Colleen, and I said, Ken wants us to stay with him. She goes, I don't know. I don't know. Just we're both on edge because we, true crime and this and that and all that. And so, Ken and I were emailing back and forth, and he finally said, we're good people. This is the way Canada is. And I go, okay. I told Colleen, I said, here we go. I said, just tell everyone where we're going. So if something does go south, they'll come and whatever. We went. Oh, and another thing is I bought kind of a mobile, I don't know what they call, but I was in contact with the hotel, the Steveston Hotel. You can see it on the show. And it was right at the end of Moncton Street there. And so I started to contact back and forth with the hotel owner and manager. And I said, we're coming up to Steveston right around this time. And on this day, we want to do a live broadcast from your cafe in the hotel. And we're going to open the windows so, if anything's going on, we'll just whatever. And she asked a very important question. She goes, do you do spoilers? We wanted to be different. And I think a lot of people did podcasts like that, just did spoilers all the time. And we decided not to because we wanted people to enjoy the show and not be spoiled. Other podcasts did other things and they had little sections at the end. That's fine. We decided not to. That was kind of a dogma. We just, nope, no spoilers. That's it. In contact with the hotel, they said, yes, no problem. As a matter of fact, because it was kind of slow, it was either a slow season or they didn't do it much. They closed the cafe down after breakfast and they didn't serve anything because nobody ever came by. And they said, for you, we will open up the cafe and you can set up there and broadcast. And so I wanted to set up kind of a smaller area to do it, but it wasn't working. And so I packed up my entire desktop in the car and we took it across the border all the way up. It was so funny crossing, but I've never been to Canada until then. And we went a few times, but we crossed the border and it was kind of like, it was just somebody there. You go, hey, well, why are you coming to Canada? Business or pleasure? And I go, pleasure. And he goes, are you sure? You know, no business. And it was kind of funny. I mean, it was just no big deal. And so that was when we crossed the border. But when we got to Steveston, we were staying with listener Ken, and just the memories and experiences I had with the Canadian folks, I could fill a book. That was such a great time. Ken and his family were just fantastic. They had, oh my God, it was just so good. So right after we got kind of unpacked and settled in, we went over to the hotel to kind of check, the Steveston Hotel. And so we were talking to the manager. She was just so nice. Then the security guard came over and said, who is this? So we said, we're the podcast that's going to go live, I think the next day or 2 days after. I think 2 days after. And he goes, do you do spoilers? And so the manager reached over and kind of said, listen, ABC checked him out. They listen to his podcast. They don't do spoilers. They are approved. And I almost fainted because I was like, ABC has checked us out. Now, the one thing I know about a great TV show or a great movie or great anything, lawyers are everywhere. And so, again, when you turn back the clock and you go back to the beginning, all those decisions I made, like putting fan in the podcast name and all that, it was great for me to do that because we weren't trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. It wasn't the official whatever. Later on, I said, this is the unofficial podcast because another podcast kind of had a run with the lawyers and he had to make some changes. So I kind of learned from that and said, this is the unofficial podcast, you know, da, da, da. But we were on cloud nine. We were steps where listener Ken lived. We were steps from Moncton Street, Storybrooke. It was fantastic. And I remember I did reach out to other podcasters and I said, hey, we're going to go live on this date at this time, you know, and we had to kind of make sure we had all the times right. And that chat room was packed. And as we were broadcasting live, the cast vans were going by. And one of Colleen's favorite, mine too, one of my Colleen's favorite actors in the show was Mr. Gold. And he was going back and forth in the van, and they were filming at Mr. Gold's shop. We could see it. I mean, I'd have to turn around, but we could see it, but we didn't say anything. We did nothing. And it was just an amazing amazing thing. And that's another thing is, look, to have a great host is great, but also having my wife as a co-host who was also on Twitter. I know it's a different name now, but I'm always going to call it Twitter. She reached out to some of the other cast members, and we had dinner with a group of the cast members. And I've rarely talked about that, but that was amazing. It was a number of the dwarfs from the show. And and some of the discussions and stuff I'll never forget. It was just so nice. And I took a picture with Josh Dallas, and it was just incredible. And just Canada is an incredibly nice place. We went to I don't know if you remember, but there was a ice cream shop on Moncton Street, on the main street of, I think it was like 2 doors down from Mr. Gold's pawn shop. And so we went in there and we were talking to the lady, and she knew everybody. They all came in there, and she was leaning hard into the show, and she made ice cream flavors for all the different characters. Henry came in, and they all came in to taste their ice cream. She was so nice. And she looked at me, and we were talking, and we were explaining why we were doing the podcast. And she started to really tear up. She goes, it's rare that people do things because they love it, and it really touched her. And she goes, next time you come, you're staying with me. I mean, this is Canada. I mean, it's just, California is just a totally different thing. And we had the most amazing time. I can't remember if it was that time. I think we just saw the throngs of people watching filming, and it was just amazing. We knew that there was something to this. So going to Steveston, doing a live broadcast, I think broke things wide open, And there was at least one other podcast host that was in the chat room, and he invited his listeners over to, participate. And, that was great because, we had exposure to more people that may not have listened. But that was an amazing thing. So I will leave you with this, and then we'll come back with another part. Dream big and go for it. I will tell you that, because if we would have not gone, none of that would have happened. And so I really want to encourage you, whatever you do, just ask, go for it. Anyway, that's it. This is Jeff. See ya. Bye.